Hello, House of Massive Use here for a special retrospective video. Yes, I figured it's a good time to do a retrospective of this because in just a couple of days the fourth film will be released in theaters here in Australia. I have seen reviews, but I'm going to keep an open eye with these things because I sometimes don't agree with the critics, but in the paper or on the internet, so only time will tell. Anyway, welcome to my retrospective of the Kung Fu Panda films. Yeah, I've been wanting to do this for a very long time, and I think now's a good time. Now, let me start off by saying this. I'm a huge Kung Fu Panda fan. I love the films. I haven't seen much of the TV shows, I will admit. I saw bits and pieces of Legends of Awesomeness during my year, my late time on Nickelodeon, and I go to see some of the Netflix shows, especially the ones with Jack Black back returning as Poe. But I'll get to them eventually. But for the films, love them to death. And well, I think in many ways they kind of are my favorite films from DreamWorks in many ways. I mean, they're definitely among there. And I love them to bits, and I'm willing to. I always like every now and then popping one in and watching them again. Especially one in particular, but we'll get to that one soon. But let's start off with the history of the first film. It should be worth knowing that at this in 2008 when this came out, DreamWorks had sort of had solidified their identity as being this you know being more of a comedic uh film studio with the amount of comedies they made with with taking risks and pop culture references and and a bit of a and toilet humor here and there. But it should be worth knowing that but at that point, even though the success of Shrek 2, Shrek and Shrek 2 sort of, I gave them their identity, it was becoming clear they were starting to, after only, only a couple of years later, they were starting to lose, you know, people were starting to get a little bit tired of it, especially the previous, after 2007, because Shrek the Third, well, I honestly don't think it's as bad as a lot of other people say. I know it left a lot of fans disappointed and were starting to get sick of it, especially with the amount of copycats that other studios had released, which didn't help. And B movie, while we remember it for the memes, it's again a lot of people are very, can say it's not really a good movie, and you know, didn't really get what didn't really get the praise that DreamWorks were hoping for. From the fact as well that at that point their partnership with Aardman Animations had officially ceased after Flushed Away from 2006. So in many ways, they needed something to, reinvent, revitalize them, and try and discover a new identity and out of all and along with releasing the sequel to Madagascar 2, which kept with their original style, although very different. Well, the Madagascar films are very different from a lot of DreamWorks' other comedies. They released this Kung Fu Panda. I'm not sure how many people it's in, and this was a different sort of tale. Well, yes, it's still a comedy. It was more character driven and would be a little bit more focusing on drama as well, and psychological things. And it was it was going to be interesting how they handled this. And right from the very beginning, people loved it. It was a huge success, and in many ways, it not only was a huge success for DreamWorks, but also a huge success for the main star of the film. Yep, and I'll talk about it later. But anyway, the film focuses on a panda named Poe, voiced by Jack Black. He is a huge martial arts fan, and and wants to and dreams of one day being a kung fu master like them, like his heroes, the Furious Five. One day, the Grand Master of the Valley, Oogway, is is about to announce who will become the Dragon Warrior, the hero who will protect the valley from external threats and be the greatest kung fu master of all time. Poe, Poe accidentally gets flung into the mix when he's trying to watch, so he can watch the thing, and the master ends up choosing him. much to the surprise of everyone around him, including Poe himself, who believes it's all a mistake. But Uguay believes that Chip's flight, that everything, that he is the true hero and will guide everyone to safety. This, of course, is much to the eye of his main main student, of Uguay's main student, close friend Shifu, played by Dustin Hoffman, who was determined to, train Poe hard enough to make him quit and leave. Along, but Poe is too innocent and excited by the recent turn of events that the thought never crosses his mind, even though he knows he's not meant to be here. Though his and his attitude seems to his over eager attitude doesn't seem to fit well for a lot of the other members of members of the Furious Five who also believe they've been chipped, in particular Tigress. But though the others, like Monkey, uh, Viper, Mantis, and Crane, eventually warm up to his you know to himself. How it's this especially gets even more complicated when the villain who the Dragon Warrior was destined to vanquish, Tai Lung, another former student of Shifu, breaks out of prison and vows vengeance for what he believes was, you know, wrongfully taken from him. So the race is on to train Poe to be the Dragon Warrior before Tai Lung arrives. Now let's start with the main thing that I think stands out with this film, and that is in many ways the characters. Every one of them is well written and three dimensional and superbly three dimensional, and very you identify with them with what they're going through. Even the side characters like Poe's adoptive father, you can completely understand with him. That's helped a lot by the voice acting. I mean, every one of the voice actors in these films all do a really superb job of what they're given, and they really make these characters so believable. With by far the standout being Jack Black as Poe. Now, Poe is a great character, and we easily identify with his with who he is and what and why and what he wants to be, and then and it's even identify and even though and he's so sympathetic with everything that gets thrown at him and how he feels, and when he finally reveals why he in many ways wants to learn kung fu, you identify with him, and it's superbly helped by Jack Black. I mean, in many ways, Jack Black is Poe. They're both one and the same, and it's quite hard to think of one without the other. This was his breakout role. This was, in many ways, the role that changed him in moviegoers' eyes. I mean, and Black knows this. He loves the character, and anytime he's doing specific events, he's always willing to see if he can bring Poe along with him. Yeah, even I'm not sure if Poe's appeared in a Tenacious D uh, concert or anything, but it wouldn't surprise me if he has. And but even before this, before the first Kung Fu Panda, Jack Black's movies, well, they've been fine and they've been enjoyable. I wouldn't say they're all perfect, and I'm not a big fan of a lot of the characters, like of his characters. Like I'm going to be off topic. School of Rock. I know a lot of people love that, but I did not like that movie, and I thought Jack Black was not really that good in it. But I mean, the thing is, DreamWorks saw something in Jack Black. I mean, when he played Lenny in Shark Tale, and give even taking Shark Tale's less than stellar reputation, it was clear that Jack definitely put a lot of effort into to voicing his character. Because he was the only one who tried. It wasn't sounding like his complete self. He tried to do something different. So it was clear to say that he has a knack. That DreamWorks saw his knack for voice acting. So they were very so Jeffrey Katzenberg and the heads of studio were very eager to have Jack play a star, bring Jack Black in for another film, this time as a starring role. And it's definitely clear to say that he enjoys this playing this character. A lot of the other actors all do, and as I said, all the other actors do a good job. Dustin Hoffman, Angelina Jolie, David Cross, Seth Rogen, Lucy Liu, Jackie Chan, um, James Hong, Ian McShane. They're all great actors and do a really good job with this. Their comedic moments shine and their dramatic moments shine even further. The animation, of course, is superb, especially when you get to the fight scenes. The martial arts in this film is is so great. You never get tired of it, and every time you get another action scene, even if it's on a small scale or large scale, it's going to look fantastic. I mean, the Tai Lung escape scene from prison is just unbelievable, and I love Poe's fight with Shifu over a dumpling. That is just so great, and the climax, iconic. The catchphrases are great in this. You remember every moment of it. It stands out so well, and just the it's so beautiful, and and it does sort of lean into martial arts, ideals and everything, and it's so and it fits so well with the modern style humor. It's unbelievable. There's a lot you can love for both kids and adults in this that makes this film so stand out in a huge way. I suppose the one criticism a lot of people have with this is Tai Lung, and I mean he's not bad in this. I mean, as I said, Ian McShane does a good job voicing him. The story behind him is great, and his backstory is pretty well done too, and his connection to Shifu. But well, everything between him and Shifu, I should say. But a lot of people feel that he could have been handled a lot better, especially with how he was built up. But honestly, looking back on it, I think he works in this film, especially at this point. No one takes in this first film, no one takes Poe seriously. Even when they finally meet, he does take Poe seriously. So it's because he's an overweight panda, which of course leads to why the climax of the film works so well. It's but I think a lot of people, I think he deserves a lot more credit where credit is due. But he's not the best. He's not the best villain in this. Again to that. But when you, but in general, he still is really enjoyable, and there's a fair reason why people are excited, why fans were excited to see him return for the fourth film. Um, with that said, the first film is an undisputed classic. It definitely changed a lot for DreamWorks and Jack Black, and the whole. It gave DreamWorks a new franchise. As I said, it gave Jack Black a you know, new reputation when it came to his films. It's unbelievable to think just how much, in many ways, this film still holds up even now, especially as things have gone older. As it's gone older, it's still a fantastic film. And in many ways, as I said, it did change DreamWorks. It allowed them to make more character-driven films with dramatic moments. I mean, I don't think without Kung Fu Panda we would have seen the likes of the How to Train Your Dragon films, Rise of the Guardians, The Croods in some respects as well. Even Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, I think, borrows a lot from the from Kung Fu Panda. It's fantastic to think that way, and it's not to say DreamWorks have also had, improved their more silly stuff as well. I mean, Megamind, along with its dramatic moments, is a very great comedy, and as is The Bad Guys. But it's just saying this really, as I'm saying, this really changed DreamWorks, and I'm grateful for it. But within that, DreamWorks knew they had a hit and were determined to make a sequel, make it into a franchise. And they were det- and they were determined to make the next film even better. And they were going. So 3 years later, and no, actually, 3 years later, I think it came out the exact same day as it was released in 2000, as it was in 2008. We got the sequel, Kung Fu Panda 2, with a lot of people. I'm sure a lot of people were very. I'm not sure how many people were probably excited for this in some ways. I'm not sure how people feel about the trailers for these films. I'm not sure how people feel. I heard some people say that they don't. The trailers for the Kung Fu Panda films aren't particularly as strong as the films, but I don't know. They're not too bad, I guess. It was going to be interesting because at this point they officially finished Shrek off after forever after the previous year. Madagascar was coming to an end the following year, so in many ways, and though How to Train Your Dragon really did, How to Train Your Dragon 1 was a good starting point. They hadn't yet, and they were getting ready to start the TV series. It was the series in its infancy, so they really need to come Panda 2 to really be a good success. And boy, was it a massive success by far. I mean, critics loved it, audiences love it, and I'm just going to say I love it. So this is my favorite film in the series, and it's not just my favorite film in the series. It's actually it's also my favorite DreamWorks movie and one of my favorite films of all time. I love Kung Fu Panda 2. It's in many ways still just every time I watch it, and every time I think about it, it's just so gets better and better. I love this film so dearly. I saw this in, I saw the first film in theaters and enjoyed it. Saw the second film in theaters and had this here is the best film I've ever seen in theaters, in my view. I mean, even though I love film, I would say Oppenheimer, the Mario movie, Last Wish, No Way Home, Endgame, even Hidden World, they all come close. Even Wreck-It Ralph a year later, but man, you can't top. In my view, this was just. Oh, I love this film so dearly, and yeah, let's get on. Continuing after the events of the first film, Poe has settled into his role as the Dragon Warrior, and and now people are starting. People, the Furious Five respect him, and Shifu as well. He's developing his craft. He's become more stronger. But just on cue, a new villain has arrived. A peacock known as Lord Shen, played by Gary Oldman, is is threatening the land of China with a brand new weapon, the cannon, a cannon which he is powered by fireworks. He is determined to take over the whole of China and as its supreme leader. The one thing that stands in his way up is a prophecy that states a panda is supposed to kill him, and he's determined to wipe out all the panda race and to make sure no one gets in his way. When Poe learns about this, the threat Shen has over Kung Fu, he and the Furious Five head off to Gongmen City, Shen's homeland, to fight him off. And along the way, they learn about Poe's backstory and truth about what happened to his parents. It's interesting in many ways that you can sort of it's funny how in many ways when it comes to sequels they don't usually evolve the story too much. Some sequels just stick to the basic formula from the first film and just rehash it, but this one evolved it pretty well. It's but in still in a way that kept to the themes of the original film. Once Poe's still likable and you can see how stronger he's gone, but now that he's facing but when he now comes into conflict with his past, it obviously takes a toll out on him. And the Furious Five obviously respect him a lot more. They don't make fun of him too much, and the relationship he has with Tigress is a really believable close friendship. The animation got a massive upgrade. I love One of the things I love about this film is it's not the film series is they've also thrown unique style changes, like when they use 2D animation at specific points. I love that, and it's used most effectively here. The the 3D in these films are also is pretty good 3D. DreamWorks has a really good record when it came to using 3D tech and 3D tech, using 3D effects for the films, and this one's no exception. The the music is fantastic. Hans Zimmer's always did a good job with the composing of these films, and even John Powell as well. I love them. I love the music, and it's evolved straight further here. The animation as I said, got a massive step up, and the theme of learning inner peace and how it reflects Poe's struggles in this is really well done. And the theme of learning to conquer yourself before you conquer enemies is, it's so great here. And then of course you get Shen. Oh my goodness, he is one of the best villains in animation. He is so great. His backstory is incredible. His design. You wouldn't expect a peacock to be a great villain. Even the advertising for this film sort of made it look like he'll be such a big joke, but he is so threatening. His voice is fantastic. His style of combat, the way his psychological grip over Poe is so fascinating. He still gets a lot of good, and he gets a bit of good comedy as well. Gary Oldman did a fantastic job voicing him by far. It's you can just basically tell all the history he has in just his voice, and everything about him is so threatening. And it's interesting. What I like more about this is while Taiwan never took Poe seriously, Shen, no matter even when he finally meets Poe and sees how laid back he is and how silly he is still subjectively terrified of him because he knows Poe's the only one that can defeat him from this prophecy. Especially as he sees more of Poe's kung fu, how Poe's kung fu. It's he is it's all he but he will never show it. And it's just so, and Poe for most of the time he is. both he even though how you can tell every time he's facing Chen, he is both, he's very he's obviously very, determined to beat him, but again, he's very scared over, especially when it comes to Shen finding out what Shen will tell him over the truth about what happened to his family, which leads to the scene where he both finally learns the truth and masters inner peace. Oh, so great that scene. It's probably uh, one of the few things that actually gets me a little teary eyed here and there. The music, the animation, the quietness, the pacing, just the atmosphere. Oh, jeez. When that scene happened, even though which Poe has flashbacks showing his mother leaving him behind, it when you finally see what had actually happened, it just crushes you. And when he finally realize sees how far he's come, and when he remembers to the events of the first film and sees who he truly is, and past that traumatic memory, it's just so fantastic. And the line when Poe finally decides he has to, and the line he says as the scene ends is just so fantastic, and it, throws a bit of comedy here and there, but it's great. It's great. It's a great scene. The voice acting is great. I've already mentioned Gary Oldman and the returning actors. Jack Black, of course, again, fantastic. Shifu's not in that much, but I think it's actually okay. And I like also that Uguay isn't actually that really in it. You see him briefly in the opening, which all the Kung Fu Panda films have different stylized openings for the DreamWorks logo, which is great. And I'm comfortable he's not in it. I mean, even he's just briefly mentioned during when Shifu tells Poe he has to master inner peace, and even they even name drop Tai Lung for a specific scene, and it works pretty well. It fits with Poe's knowledge of love of kung fu and the history of it. Um, you get some, but the new voice actor is also great too. I mean, Michelle Yeoh is fantastic as the soothsayer who tells who pretty much told Shen the prophecy over that Panda would defeat him. John Clive Van Damme as one of the new kung fu masters in this. It's pretty good choice. There's some. It's just so fantastic, and you can never really when you first watch, it, you can never really tell where it's going. And yeah, I mean, even the scenes with Mr. Ping, it's also handled pretty well. And geez, it get when you finally get to the end, it just leaves you with such a great smile on your face, and you know, and the ending that left the door open for a sequel for the future, for what the sequel will be, is just so fantastic. And it was all everything was just paced so well leading up to it. What can I say? This film is fantastic. It is still one of my favorite movies. I love it to death. It's flawless in my view. There's nothing really I can nitpick of it. Everything worked in this film so well that I just adore it so much. And I could never, it's hard for me ever to say you know, if this can ever be, topped in many ways. It can come close to being topped, but it's just a fantastic film and I can never forget the memory of first seeing it. It's just so good, so good. Amazing. With that said, I was eagerly excited for Kung Fu Panda for when they would release Kung Fu Panda 3. This was the thing was I was a little worried of how long it took. Because it took the gap between the first film and the second film was 3 years. This was 5 years. And, but one thing I should mention is unlike the first two, I never saw this in theaters. Yeah, this is an interesting thing I should mention. I never saw it in theaters for quite which is strange because you would think I would have, but there are three reasons as to why. One was that this film was released 3 months late in 2016 when this came out. This movie was released 3 months later in Australia than from the rest of the world. Like in the rest of the world came out in January in theaters. This came out in April, and so you can honestly tell I was confused as to when it was coming out. So that didn't help. Uh, Reason number two was that I had just started high school at going through year 11 high school, so I had a lot of assignments and everything, and exams. So the time it did come out was sort of a bad time for me as I was, pretty backed up in work, in schoolwork. Reason number three was I also had just began my first proper job, so it obviously didn't. That also didn't help, and caused me to you know struggle to find time to even go there. In fact, to be fair, 2016, I only saw maybe two or three films in theaters. I saw Force Awakens late in January. I saw Rogue One when that came out in December of that year, and I think was Steven Spielberg's the BFG released that year. Well, if it was, I did see it then. I'm not sure. Maybe it was 2015. I'm not sure, but yeah, I didn't see that many. I didn't really go to the theaters that much that year. Um, so yeah, that's the reason why I didn't. Those are the reasons why I didn't see this film in theaters. And so obviously I just had to wait for it to come out on DVD. And in many ways, what was the end of this original of this trilogy of this trilogy? I thought it was a solid, finale. I thought it was a really good film. I'd say it's great, but I could definitely tell this was in many ways the weakest of the original films, or in many ways weaker than the second film because maybe this was tied of the first film. I don't know. So once again, Poe is at this point Poe is now pretty much identified himself and is fully settled into his role as the Dragon Warrior. But now and at this point, Shifu decides it's time for him to, start to take over his role as master trainer of the Kung Fu Warriors, which obviously leads to disaster because Poe's never really taught anyone. And also at this point, Shifu tells Poe he has to learn how to master Chi, a spiritual healing technique that can, you know, that can, heal Kung Fu masters and, also leads to vast power. At this point, it's also at this point that Poe's biological father, Li Shang, voiced by Bryan Cranston, finds him and re-enters his life, much to the ire of his adoptive father, Mr. Ping. As Poe begins to learn more and more about himself through his father, a new threat comes into the fray, known as General Kai. He is an ox who apparently used to work with Uguay, but was banished to the spirit realm for apparently trying to steal the chi of every kung fu master, along with all the pandas, who apparently pandas were the original masters of chi. As Kai gets closer to the Valley of Peace, and Lee tells Poe he can learn how to master chi through him if he travels back to the secret panda village that we briefly saw at the end of the second film and learn how to become a panda as well, so how to master becoming a true panda. So Poe agrees to go along to the panda village and learn more about his panda family, with Mr. Ping stowing away to hoping to make sure that Lee doesn't technically steal Poe from him. Poe finally meets more pandas for the first time. As and as Poe begins as Poe begins to get to learn more about his heritage, Kai gets closer and begins to take the chi of every one of his friends, bar Tigress. So it's up to Poe so Poe has to pretty much rush in to learn how to use chi, which which may be more difficult than he originally thinks. So I guess I should mention is that the animation, I think this is probably the best looking of the films. It's a lot brighter, and I think the first two films, it's close to say they're very similar, looks to it when it comes to how dark it was, the lighting, I should say. The second film maybe was a touch bit darker considering the subject matter and all this, but this is definitely the brightest. And what it is, I think it works with this film in many ways, especially when it comes to the action scenes and the use of chi, which is a good addition. I mean, I love the character design still. The characters still look the same. It still looks amazing. I mean, the way the DreamWorks depiction of ancient China is just so fantastic, and it definitely shines the most here, I think. Though I will state, one of the scenes when Poe's well, one of the in one scene when Poe and his father are hiking towards the panda village, I think they're on a volcanic crater and there's a bunch of rocks. Doesn't that look like a background from the original Shrek? Like, as when Shrek and Donkey are about to reach the Dragon's Keep. I swear that's the exact same one, just updated. I just pay attention. Just if you could put the two scenes simultaneously together, you'll immediately spot the similarities. Like I'm just saying. Yeah, but I don't really care. I think that's actually a pretty cool reference, to be fair. The voice acting is great. And I like the new additions. I think, and again, the new additions are fantastic. I think Bryan Cranston did a really good job here. Fresh off the ending of Breaking Bad, he did a really good job as Poe's biological father. And I feel like this is where James Hong really shined the most as Mr. Ping. He is fantastic in this. I mean, he gets a lot more screen time too. And yeah, and the relationship between the three, both Poe, Lee, and Ping is a really good dynamic. I obviously again all the other voice actors do a good job too. J.K. Simmons as Kai. I'll get to him later. Um, I think again, I think the martial arts is handled well, especially the climax. In fact, the climax itself, all the climaxes I think are very much the same. I feel it's hard for me to tell which one's my favorite climax of the original trilogy. It's just they're all equal in so many ways. They're just all different. The first film was more of the one thing I will say, the first film was more of a solo fight, which makes sense. The Where it starts off with Shifu versus Tai Long and Po versus Tai Long. Then you get the second film, which is both a a, a joint fight, which ends in a between between all the Kung Fu masters versus Shen's army. Then Po versus and Po has to face both the army and Shen all together. And then this one, I think it's both. It's the same as the first film, but with a bit more handled a bit differently. Obviously, Po has to face the uh, uh, Pi on his own at the very end, but it fits pretty well. Where I feel like in this case, I will say this when it comes to Po versus Shen. Well, I feel like I like when they actually pretty much show that it was impossible for the other Kung Fu other member the other members of Poe's the other Poe's allies are unable to fight his main adversary in two reasons. They have to pretty much show if they're lacking in energy or they're too far away, which is what I think they did, which is what they did in the second film. Or in this film, Poe, in order to protect Tigress, his fathers and the rest of the pandas, has to take Kai back to the spirit realm and by sacrificing himself, and which does lead to probably my favorite scene where Poe does the wishy finger hold on himself to send Kai away, which is probably which I think is my favorite scene in the film. Um, yeah, so I like when they actually can explain when they sort of explain why it's impossible for Poe's allies to fight his main adversary, which I'm grateful for that. I like. I mean, the comedy's all right. I think it's probably the weakest of the films, but they still get a lot of good chuckles. Yeah, when it comes to the comedy, and it's everything works in this film so well, and it does lead to a good ending. Everything just was paced so well, and you can tell this was where they wanted to end this this part of the series. I will say with Kai, he's definitely the weakest of the film the film's villains of the series villains. I mean, he still has a good design. I think the voice acted by J.K. Simmons is fantastic. I mean, J.K. Simmons is one of the best voice actors I think around. But I will admit, do you think he borrowed a lot of Kai's mannerisms for Omni Man? Just saying. Um, but yeah, he's great. But I think one of the reasons why there are two main reasons as to why I think this film is the weakest. Is one is that having Kai have a connection with Uruguay. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Uruguay coming back. I mean, it does make sense for this film to go full circle, and having Poe finally talk to Uruguay again after so long of a time is a good idea. And it's a great idea, but I don't know. I don't Having Kai being so rude to Uguay is probably his weakest aspect. Like, okay, having him, kill the pandas, much like Shen. Okay, in this case, he wants to steal their power, not technically wipe them out. And again, he doesn't much like I feel like he's also a mixture of both Shen and Tai Lung, where he takes Poe seriously but not too serious, like Shen, but not too, but also is very doesn't take him too seriously as well, like Tai Lung. So it's a bit of a mix, which okay does work. He does, see Poe's strength and when it comes to his kung fu and his handling of things, but also his how he does take how Poe also is a bit of a jokester as well, causes him not to take him too seriously, especially when it comes to his plan, how he uses his army to defeat Kai's J warriors. In fact, him capturing all the kung fu masters does give him a very good threat, very very substantial threat. And in fact, he apparently also captured Tai Lung's chi in the spirit realm before he even got Uguay's. Which kind of makes me wonder whether Uguay actually faced Tai Lung in the spirit realm. Maybe I'll hear something in the full film. Nah, I'm not sure that I will, but yeah, I think it's because I think it's because he is so deeply rooted to Uguay is why he's probably the weakest of the film's villains because Uguay was used when it worked with Tai Lung because it was the first film and Uguay was a massive part of it. And the fact that Uguay wasn't really in the second film or wasn't hardly mentioned in the second film is why I feel like bringing him back to be so neatly, part of Kai's backstory, which is effective in basically telling us what led him down that path. I'm just not so sure if I can, how I feel if they really should have done it. I mean, again, it makes sense how they used Uguay in this, but I just feel like having him be so neatly, part of Kai's backstory does weaken Kai in general, along with the fact that a lot of people just everyone doesn't really remember his name, which does make sense in the story as Uguay pretty much rubbed him out of existence after their battle. Yeah, so there's that. And the big issue I have with the third film is this is way. I feel like it's way too short. It only takes it only goes for about an hour. Yeah, the other two films at least went for about maybe an hour or 20 minutes. This one only just basically goes for just about an hour and 5 minutes. Like I think it's about. I mean, it's only just above the length of Dumbo. And a lot of people say when I tell people that I didn't really think the Super Mario Bros. Movie was that too short, and say, well, why do I feel that way? Well, then I say, well, do you remember how short Kung Fu Panda 3 was? That's the reason why I'm willing to defend the length of the Super Mario Bros. Movies because I feel like this is a film that should have been maybe a little bit longer. I mean, everything worked. I mean, the story worked enough, and it was all fine. But I still think it just felt like there should have been more to it, and I just, it's a big issue for me with this film. It's not. The thing is, it doesn't hurt it too much. I still think it's a great film, and I do think it was a great end to the trilogy. But I just wish it could have been a little bit longer. But in general, I still think it's a fine film, and I think it has great moments as well. And to be fair, none of these films right here are all bad. They're all fantastic. I love them all, and I can't really, ignore one film when I start when I decide I want to watch the films. I have to watch them the whole way through. Even though my favorite still is two, and I could probably watch that whenever I want, but I still can't do that because I just feel like I have to watch these films the whole way through and enjoy them. It's a perfect trilogy. It was a great bit of. It's probably one of DreamWorks. It's definitely, in my view, DreamWorks' best film franchise. Which is why, in many ways, I was sort of disappointed it was a trilogy because the original plan was to be a six-part film franchise. Which is why, so that is why I'm so excited. When I first heard they were going to do a fourth film, finally, I was like, yes, yes, do it. It's about time. And, I know I've heard things from people when it comes to the fourth film. When it comes whether it can match whether it matches the rep about whether it does match the reputation of the first three. But I'm not going to say any. I'm not trying to. Yeah, I've watched some reviews. I've read them, so I'm not going to judge it yet. Let me watch it first, then I'll decide whether it compares. Although I will say, actually, no, I'll say this part when I get to the review, just because I know it's in the trailer, so everyone knows about it. But uh, the stinger at the end of the first film. We'll talk about that when we get to it. But yeah. With that said, thank you for joining me for this retrospective of the Kung Fu Panda films. I love talking about them, and join to me next time at the end of this week when I finally get to review Kung Fu Panda 4. I look for I look forward to seeing that in theaters very shortly, and I will give you my full thoughts on it. Probably the day after. You never know. In the meantime, or probably the day after that. So at the very least, I will try and aim to get it done within the next 7 days. A review of Kung Fu Panda 4. For the meantime, House of Mouse Reviews is out, and I shall see you for my next video. So, ciao and skadoosh.